Welcome back to Crux Stationalis, your daily companion on the Roman Station Church pilgrimage. Today is Tuesday of the first week of Lent, and our journey brings us to the basilica of Sant'Anastasia al Palatino. This ancient church, nestled at the foot of the Palatine Hill, sits in the very heart of imperial Rome, a reminder of how Christianity took root in the shadow of the empire. In the next few minutes, we'll explore the history of this basilica, its connection to the early church, and the Lenten themes it invites us to meditate on today. Sant'Anastasia's location is deeply symbolic. Standing at the base of the Palatine Hill, it is surrounded by the remnants of imperial palaces, the very seat of power in ancient Rome. This was the home of emperors from Augustus to Domitian, and the center of Roman political and religious life. And yet, in the midst of this, a Christian place of worship emerged. This basilica is one of the oldest in Rome, dating back to the late 3rd or early 4th century, likely built under the patronage of a Christian noblewoman, possibly Anastasia herself. It became a center of worship during the time when Christianity was still emerging from persecution into public life. Imagine what it must have been like for the early Christians who gathered here. Just a short distance away, the emperor ruled as a god on earth. Temples to Jupiter and Apollo stood on the Palatine, and yet here a different kind of king was worshipped, Christ, the true Lord, whose kingdom was not of this world. This church is dedicated to Saint Anastasia, a martyr of the early church. Though details of her life remain uncertain, tradition tells us that she was a noble woman of Sirmium, modern-day Serbia, who suffered persecution under Emperor Diocletian in the late 3rd century. She was known for her charity to imprisoned Christians, tending to them in their suffering until she herself was arrested and martyred for her faith. In the early centuries, Sant'Anastasia held a special place in the Christmas liturgy as one of the principal churches of Rome. The Pope would celebrate the second Christmas Mass here, linking the birth of Christ with the witness of the martyrs, those who, like Anastasia, laid down their lives for him. As you step inside Sant'Anastasia, its structure reflects the early Christian basilica form, a long nave, side aisles, and a simple, elegant atmosphere. Though later renovations have added Baroque elements, the heart of the church remains ancient. One of the most striking figures is a 17th century fresco in the apse, depicting Saint Anastasia in glory, a visual reminder of her triumph through suffering. Near the high altar, we also find an icon of the Madonna and Child, which has been venerated for centuries, inviting pilgrims to reflect on the mystery of Christ's incarnation, a fitting connection to the Church's ancient role in the Christmas liturgy. On this second day of the first week of Lent, Sant'Anastasia reminds us of the call to perseverance. Just as Saint Anastasia remained faithful under persecution, we too are called to faithfulness in the trials of life. Lent is a time of spiritual discipline, a topic we're going to be coming up with throughout the whole season on this series. It's a liturgical season to strengthen our faith, knowing that suffering for Christ leads to victory in Him. One of the most beautiful things that we encounter along the Roman Station Church pilgrimage throughout Lent is we'll sometimes come to a church and they will decorate the floor and the altar with laurel, a sign of victory, because crowns of laurel used to be placed upon victors of wars in ancient Rome. And so too, we see also statues of saints with crowns as a sign of victory over sin and death because they participate in the saving passion of Christ by offering themselves in union with him. And even more beautifully during this liturgical season, walking through these churches, processing through these churches, singing the Litany of Saints, at times the floors will be laden with laurel leaves. And as we're walking, processing through the church, singing the Litany of the Saints, the steps of the faithful going over these leaves starts to give a perfume from the leaves. These laurel leaves, also, what do we call it? We call them bay leaves in English as well. So the location of Saint Anastasia's church at the foot of the Palatine Hill invites us to reflect on the contrast between earthly and heavenly power. We see the victory of the saint. We see it shadowed even by the hill of former imperial Rome. And we see that it persists, that it endures the test of time, unlike Rome, which ancient Rome sits now in ruins. The emperors who once ruled from above sought to control the world through force, but their reigns faded into history. Meanwhile, the faith that flourished in humble places like Sant'Anastasia has endured. As we continue our Lenten journey, let's ask ourselves, where do we seek security? In the power of the world or in the power of faith? In the comfort of our jobs, in the comfort of our homes? Or are we willing to sacrifice not only the difficult sacrifices that might come, but like these martyrs, if the question would be asked of us, as it's being asked of many Christians throughout the world today, would we even be willing to offer ourselves? The witness of the martyrs and the endurance of this sacred pilgrimage site in Rome, Sant'Anastasia, challenges us to place our trust in Christ, whose kingdom doesn't fade, but rather whose kingdom is everlasting. Thank you for joining me today on Crux Stationalis at Sant'Anastasia al Palatino. Tomorrow, our pilgrimage leads us deeper into Lent as we go to Pope Francis's favorite basilica in Rome, as well as a place that I enjoy praying, Santa Maria Maggiore. And as always, remember that you can find the video tour of Sant'Anastasia in the description of the podcast. Share the podcast with your family and friends. Let them come along with us to these most ancient churches of Rome. Until tomorrow, God bless you and continue persevering through the season of Lent.